Would an all-voluntary society have prohibition? And what about the poor? Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Bob Auden, your host for Libertarian Viewpoint. Libertarians believe in liberty, freedom tempered by human rights. How could anyone have a problem with that? This show gives you, the viewer, the non-government solutions the media refuses to tell you about. Then you can see for yourself what the best choices are. First is a speech by Aaron Gall at the Libertarian Party of Minnesota State Convention on his direct giving project called Let's Warm the City. He provides blankets and clothes to Duluth's homeless. He suggests ways you can get involved in giving directly to those in need, bypassing government intervention. The second speech is by Kurtis Hanna, Executive Director and co-founder of Minnesota NORML, the National Organization for Reform of Marijuana Laws. He talks about the harm of today's cannabis prohibition. His talk is followed by a 5-minute video from Reason TV on YouTube on hemp, George Washington's favorite crop, and its confusion with its genetic cousin, marijuana. Remember, Reason TV also has many other thought-provoking videos on their YouTube channel.
No, well, you folks, what I do is immediately I have to admit that I'm not familiar entirely with all particular policies of the Libertarian Party, but oh, geez, rough morning. Anyway, so the whole deal is that I do believe in the ideals of such that individuals themselves governs themselves. They're directly responsible for the well-being of things. Every shirt that we're wearing is spread by others, cultivated by such. And I only suggest for only a moment that I feel that that's why it's appropriate I'm here now. It's because I actually and honestly believe that individuals are being treated particularly not good, and it only takes us to change it. I think it was, I'm paraphrasing here, this is not exactly it, but Charles Bukowski himself had said that the individual that is looked down or treated like crap is entirely, we've created our own hell. We've done that to each other. We are neighbors. We are family people. We deserve things. We deserve this. And so the whole idea was, I saw people getting kicked out of bars just because they were being treated as a particular word as vagrant, or even like, and we'll get on this real quick later, the word homeless, which is more than just a label. You get it. Tired of it, I think so. Lots of these folks that have been in the street handing out like socks and clothes to, in all entirety, like, they don't want to be called this. They just want to be known as people, them or those. Homeless itself is just a label. It's a financial situation. Sure, we're all in one. What do we call the lower class? A bad family planner. Well, why don't we make fun of single fathers who only make grilled cheese? Instead, we just call these people homeless. They're trying as hard as they want to, and that's our own opinion. And my particular opinion of this subject matter is it is perceived financial situation or self-condition to our own means, to our own eyes and feelings and heart. And I honestly particularly believe in with help, I think it's not just me, it's so many other people have gathered onto this. And all it took was somebody getting kicked out of a bar and then getting a sweater, carried through and forth from such. But I suggest for only a second, if the individual, such as yourself, or such as that's receiving, actually like gets like a moment of that valley between, that gap that you close, that many things are possible. Sure, it might be just a pair of gloves. It won't matter much to you at all, but it's not supposed to. That's not the idea of giving. Entirely it's not. I suggest for only a second that an individual well, they just need to be treated like that, like their own person. I mean, how often have it's just been oversimplified, and this is why a pair of gloves is actually very significant. It's because it comes, it goes, it's easy. You can come out for $2, and what's $2 matter to you? That's not even a shot, you know, quite honestly. But I supply for only a second that if you were to spend a moment and just carry it around, it would cause no fluff in your jacket, no brim in your neck, but just one pair of gloves. This is socks, and I know the difference. I haven't helped a lot of people. I get the head mixed up with it. I don't know the tails from the ends, you know. Whoa. Anyways. Okay, that didn't work. Anyways, well, the whole idea is that it's just like, it's get rid of that label. Just you screw it, man. Throw it out the window, man. Because it's just holding people back. If you're constantly calling people something, they're constantly expected to be treated like that. People on the street who have the signs, right? Like, you know, they have the funny ones, like ninjas killed my parents, need money for karate lessons. You know, it's funny. It exists. It's been on the internet for like a decade, I figure. I've been spending a lot of time on the internet. I'm not very good at dating, so that's why I'm on the internet. But I suggest for one just a second. Really sad, but it's true. Anyways, they put a cap on my dating life, which was non-existent. It makes sense. But anyways, the only idea I suggest for just a second to you nice folks. And I see a lot of smiley faces out there. You know, a lot of faces that I believe actually care about people and rights and things like that. And once again, although I do not understand all the fundamentals of the Libertarian Party and such like that, I do support it entirely. I support the idea of like being somebody and give and enjoy that. To me, it's crazy that this hasn't happened before. Why it even has to exist? It's just been handled before we came along. I suppose. Anyways, the whole thing I'm doing is basically just giving out clothes to folks. That's as simple as that. But it's not just that. The idea is also to get other folks invigorated to actually dust off those sweaters out of their closets and give it to somebody else. I mean, really, actually give it to somebody else. Like, actually, like, it's something that they had. And we all have these trinkets that we know don't matter in the deep end. You know, they don't. They just don't. I mean, you die alone, right? It's not the money you made, it's the people you work with that you think about. So to make this quick and easy for you, I suggest for only a second, the idea is it's not just me giving out clothes. It's as many people as I can get to do that, but I'm not getting them. They're choosing that. It has to be choice. And it's not to give to change a person's life. No, it's just to make their life easier. That's entirely it. There's no deep end of it. Like, there's no centers, there's no grants. The whole idea is we're just like a big screw unit. Well, I can't say that in front of baby crud. That's my bad. I apologize, little lime green guy. Anyways, he's wearing lime green, my favorite color. Right. Anyways, so it's a big joke. Okay, listen. I suggest for only a second that we as individuals, like, we stand up a little bit. We say, no, actually, screw this. Like, I'm going to actually do what I want. And what I want, and I think this is a natural obsession we all have. And it's not an obsession. It's not even a condition. And I think it's to help people. I think it's actually to go on your way, to be nice. I mean, like I say, just carry with their socks. If I instruct everybody who's on the street teams that are on, it's just carry a pair of socks. We have a bunch of old ladies who actually themselves, who used to do this back in the early 90s and start up again because of us. They carry gloves with them on the bus. They're very they're not conflictual, I mean, to the visual aid and such like that. So we have people on buses like dropping off gloves to each other, just being nice. There's no money in it whatsoever. That's the thing too, is it can't be money. Any money that comes into us, like Friday shows up a show, and we make it a point too, that like not exploit, of course, but to feature like these particular like people who have been kicked out of these bars just because they were panhandling. Well, I create a little funny thing where I'll take care of all the extra weight right now. I'll be the one that gets all the booze. I'm fine with that. That's okay with me, because I have an internet connection. I'll just recover somehow. Put a cap. Anyways, I suggest for only just a second that What if we make this individual feel special? Feel like an individual, you know? What if we are always just out there? There's a certain amount of trust. And some people will write off as enabling, and I think that's actually a very harsh word, actually. Because it's not, it's just an immediate need. And we all have those. When you are hungry, do not go to the fridge. Or what if you do not have a fridge? You know, what you keep in cold, are you receiving it when you lived in college? Like, what was the quality of your life compared to the quality of life when you found love from somebody else? So I suggest, very deep down inside, that an individual just puts aside themselves for a moment and actually pays attention. It's the simplest thing in the world, and it matters quite a great deal. There's a reason you call your mother or answer her phone calls. It's just, we all care. We all deeply care, and that's the thing. Like, a lot of folks forget that, and it just takes something like this, what's going on in the city and stuff like that, it doesn't take just this. It doesn't have to be this. I don't even care. I'm just saying this is something I'm passionate about. And join anything else you want to. Salvation Army, I don't care. Who cares about the political connections or anything else from that standpoint? I only suggest for just a moment, as an individual, if you want to give to anybody else, you absolutely should. I mean, you should make it feel uncomfortable for yourself at first, and it will be. You know, it will be. You'll have to gauge things. The cigarette butts that you say, what do you think, I'm bored? You know, because it's insulting in some ways.
Representing my organization, Minnesota NORML. I'm currently the executive director. I have been for about 4 months now. And I just wanted to speak today a little bit about how our organization is really trying to spread liberty and freedom in this state. And there are multiple reasons why it is that prohibiting just this one plant substance is actually causing a myriad of constitutional or human rights violations that perhaps aren't always articulated in a list form. And so that's what I'm hoping to do today. So the essence of the debate or the talk today is the myriad ways in which our rights are being violated. So the first of which is the fact that we have a lot of farmland in Minnesota, and we currently are not able to grow hemp, which is pretty much the same exact plant as the cannabis plant or the marijuana plant that we all know and love. But hemp is something that is got a very long tradition in the United States. Thomas Jefferson, George Washington both grew it and loved it, spoke highly of it. But most people don't know that hemp can be used as a food. I myself am a vegetarian, and I desperately need sources of protein. And hemp actually is a complete protein. Hemp seeds are very nutritious. Also, hemp is used as a fiber. It can be used to make rope. It can be used to make clothing. Cannabis actually is very similar name to cannabis for a reason, because cannabis used to be made from the hemp plant. Also, hempcrete is kind of a newer substance, but instead of using concrete, hemp can actually be used mixed with limestone, and create a very good source to create bricks. So potentially we could have Habitat for Humanity if this were legal.
I heard it's carbon negative too.
What's that?
I heard it's carbon negative
It's
too.
carbon negative as well, and you can just break it up when you're demolishing a house and throw it onto a field, and it's actually able to just be reused and recycled by nature. Also, fuel. Many people don't know this, but hemp can be used as a gasoline, and it was used by Henry Ford. He actually made plastics for a car that he made. There's videos of the car on YouTube, but the car itself, the plastics were made from hemp, and the gasoline that it ran on was made from hemp as well. So, beyond that, religious freedoms. As Nick pointed out, I actually do have a background in religion. I grew up in the Methodist Church. However, I converted to Rastafarian tradition probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I also identify with what's called the Canatheist Church, but I really do believe that cannabis was used throughout religious history for religious purposes and visions and understandings or community with the divine. And so our community in Minnesota of religious people that use cannabis really are a persecuted bunch of people. We have our houses raided. You know, I myself was actually arrested about 5 years ago down in Iowa. But these issues have been raised in court and been denied. We do not have the religious freedom in Minnesota to use this plant for religious purposes. Also, equal protection under the law is denied to people in Minnesota because of this plant being prohibited. Currently, the racial injustice, the disparity between people of color and Caucasians is drastic. When looking at the arrest records of 2011 in Minnesota, I found that if you are a person of color, you are 3.3 times more likely to be arrested for a narcotics-related offense than if you are a person that's Caucasian in background. Also, just the simple idea that people should have the ability to have mutually beneficial financial transactions or trading is something that is also violated. You actually are able to, it is a simple petty misdemeanor if you give cannabis away, if it's a small amount. However, if you get anything at all in return, it is a felony. And you know, felonies obviously take away your right to vote. Oftentimes it results in being incarcerated for a long time. So just the fundamental liberty of being able to be outside and see the sun and not be locked up in a cage is also violated by the possession of this plant being illegal. Another issue is just the fact that our Constitution really ought to be limiting our government, if it were to be followed, to only having just wars. And the war on drugs is something that's been waging in throughout all of our lifetimes. I think since 1937, it has been a national war, and it's been a war that's been renewed throughout multiple presidencies throughout that time. And really, we can see very clearly that there has not been progress on the issue. The other issue is actually gun rights. If you possess cannabis and a gun, there's a mandatory minimum of 3 years in prison. A friend of mine actually just recently had this charge against him. Luckily, he was vindicated and the charges were dropped. However, this is a very alarming thing that the judges in these cases don't even have the authority to have a lesser penalty than 3 years in prison. And that is something that we all as Minnesota citizens have to pay for to incarcerate these individuals. So also the idea that we should not have excessive taxes upon us is an issue that is violated with this drug war as well. Beyond this, mass incarceration is an epidemic. In the very early 1980s, we actually had 20% of the amount of people in jail as we do today. We call ourselves the land of the free, but as many of you probably know, we have more people in jail in the United States per capita than anywhere else in the entire world. And so it's a depressing and sober reality, but it's what it is. Also, just the idea that we should have the right to secure our own property is violated by just simply getting a warrant which suggests that there's probable cause that you have possession of this plant substance. People in drug task forces and law enforcement are able to actually tap into your phone line. They're able to have no-knock warrants and bust your door down, come in, take not only illegal substances, but they're also able to seize your property. They're able to sometimes take your house if they believe your mortgage was being paid for through drug profits. They're also able to take money out of your bank account. They're able to take your cars. I've heard of large screen TVs even being taken as well. And so the problems are myriad, one would say. And the question is, how is it that one is to try to find your way out of this mess? And my suggestion, and actually my practice, is that through working with people in solidarity and using mutual aid, that's the way that we can, as a community of people, fight back against what I call the Babylon system or shitstorm. And we can move to a higher plane of understanding where we don't have laws that penalize our fellow citizens for the possession of a plant that is non-toxic and not harmful, but in actuality is a medicine for many people. I've personally known, I know an individual that has leukemia and cancer right now, and by using the essential oil of cannabis, by consuming about 3 grams of it a day, she's actually able to get out of bed and not be bedridden. And it's definitely prolonged her life. And if it were to be found today, I truly believe that it would be considered a miracle plant that is widely put into circulation. The other thing that Minnesota NORML does, though, is that we network with one another. We get together in small groups throughout Minnesota, mainly currently throughout the Twin Cities, but we share ideas, we share information, we share resources with one another. And all of this is done on a voluntary basis. We actually have no paid staff. We're all proponents of volunteerism and working together for a just cause. And I just believe that if we all educate ourselves, educate one another, and work together collectively, that we really can defeat the injustices that are going on. And we can really identify the fact that we all are sovereign individuals that need to take care of ourselves and others, and that we need to take responsibility for our own actions and not expect there to be some authority figure that takes care of those sort of responsibility issues on our behalf.
We've run out of time. Remember, an all-voluntary libertarian society would not sanction government coercion and would provide meaningful, life-changing one-on-one interactions with people needing help. Following right after the conclusion is a 5-minute video on George Washington's favorite crop, hemp, from Reason TV. If you believe in a voluntary society without government social engineering, you might be a libertarian. To find out, take the world's smallest political quiz at www.theadvocates.org. Liberty is always the best choice. If anyone in government can prove otherwise, I challenge them to speak up. To view past shows, go to the Libertarian Viewpoint channel on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for other shows of Libertarian Viewpoint and Live Free.
The main goal of the campaign is to try to bring back hemp farming in the United States again.
Hi, I'm Nick Gillespie with Reason TV, and today I'm talking with Eric Steenstra, who is the president of Vote Hemp, a national single-issue nonprofit advocacy group that advocates for the ability of local producers to grow and manufacture hemp. Eric, thanks for talking with us. Tell us what Hemp History Week is and what you're hoping to achieve with it.
The main goal of the campaign is to educate consumers about the benefits of industrial hemp products and try to bring back hemp farming in the United States again.
Right, and so people understand hemp is related. It's the cousin plant of cannabis or of pot, but it has no psychoactive effects on people. Currently, you can bring it in from outside the country and use it for whatever you want, but you're just not allowed to grow it here.
That's correct. We've got countries all over the world that are producing, including China and Canada and all the European countries, Russia.
When was it banned in the United States to grow?
Well, so technically in 1937, when they passed the Marijuana Tax Act, it effectively required producers of cannabis to have a tax stamp, and so that had a major effect on the production of hemp. It made it much more difficult for farmers to grow it, but it didn't outright outlaw it. But in 1970, when they passed the Controlled Substances Act, that made it then all forms of cannabis without regard to whether it was industrial variety or a a drug-type cannabis became illegal to grow.
And I mean, in a lot of ways, the ban on hemp, on industrial hemp, is the most obvious case of drug war hysteria, right? Where it's a plant that is related to something, but you can't get high off it. It has a lot of uses, but we're not allowed to grow it. Talk a little bit about the forgotten history of hemp.
You know, Mount Vernon's not very far from here. We actually did a tour in the first year of Hemp History Week and interviewed the folks down there, and they showed us where George Washington grew it on the farm, how he used it for different products, including clothing and fiber and netting for catching fish and all sorts of things. And he wrote about it in his papers about how important it was as a crop, and they actually had laws back in the in colonial times requiring people to grow hemp, and they could pay their taxes with it even. So it was a very important crop historically, and it was grown in the United States up until the 1930s.
What would change if we were allowed to grow our own hemp?
Well, right now we've got dozens of other countries that are allowing their farmers to grow it, and it's forcing American manufacturers to import the crop. We think that's pretty ridiculous. The market's grown to over $400 million a year here in the U.S. despite the ban. And so all those companies American farmers are denied the right to be able to participate in the market. They're denied a good rotation crop that grows well here. And the biggest part is, in this time when we have high unemployment, we need more jobs. Why would we do anything like this to limit the ability to grow more jobs here in the United States?
Now, at Vote Hemp, you lobby against the federal ban on manufacture of hemp, but then there's also a lot of state laws. How close are you to affecting change, do you think?
Well, we think we've made a lot of progress. 17 states have passed some form of legislation or resolution in support of industrial hemp, and there's a lot of pressure from the states. We've actually got a bill in Congress right now that's bipartisan with 33 co-sponsors, including 7 Republicans, 25 Democrats, which is pretty unusual in this day and age with all the polarization in Congress. And we've got a senator, Senator Wyden from Oregon, who's about to introduce an amendment to the Farm Bill and also some standalone legislation on this as well.
Well, there are tons of hemp products. You brought a nice Hemp Plus granola. What does hemp add to foods that it's all over the place?
Right, and that's the great thing about hemp is it's the manufacturers are adding it because of the nutritional benefits. It has a perfect balance of omega-3 and omega-6 essential fatty acids, which doctors are now recommending for good health.
What would you say is the oddest hemp product that you've encountered?
Yeah, there's a lot of great hemp products out there, but I thought hemp lube was pretty.
Hemp lube
was pretty interesting, yeah.
All right, that sounds a little bit strange. How can people find out more about Hemp History Week?
Please go. Everybody can go to hemphistoryweek.com, and we've got information on there about all the locations where there's going to be events happening, what stores are carrying the hemp products.
Thank you, Eric. I want to thank Eric Steenstra, the head of Vote Hemp and the man behind Hemp History Week, for talking to Reason TV today. Thank you. For Reason TV, I'm Nick Gillespie.